In cards, I earned my Sergeant First Class promotion when my opponent resigned fairly early on into the game. So I'm going to show you that my deck has what it takes to play at this level. We'll see how it goes here today on Legendary Tactics. So as I said, my win to get to Sergeant First Class was a little bit disappointing, so I'm not going to bother showing you that one. But instead, this is my first game after qualifying for Sergeant First Class. I'm working my way up through the ranks. Got a little ways to go to Field Marshal here, but hope you'll join me on this journey. I decided to keep my cards here. I've got AWOKEN GIANT, one of my favorite cards, in this deck. But I got a nice kind of, ramp 3, 4, 5 that I can use here to get some decent cards on the ground. There's a 6, so I've got a nice path. But with this deck, there's not much to do in the early game typically, and sometimes you do need to take your lumps a little bit. But at this stage, a lot of those lumps are fairly easy to take because the opponents don't have a lot of strong units on the board at this point, so it's totally fine. Now I'm up against a German deck here. Looks like it's going to be something like a rush deck, and so we'll see how I do. One of the weaknesses of my deck, I find, is if I am up against a strong rush deck, it can be a pretty punishing experience. Now I feel that my opponent wasted that card. Actually, it doesn't really do very much, and it just could be utilized at a better point probably than then. It just essentially was just 1 damage, but I think that card has better uses, especially if you time it when I'm already in the front line. Now he spends Death from Above. It's fairly expensive to get rid of that 4/4, but whatever. I'm okay with it. And I'll take out the unit in the front line there, and allows me to keep my my plane going there. And so we're just kind of playing the waiting game. This deck that I'm playing is my my go-to U.S. major power, British minor power deck, and I gradually have been improving it very slowly, and I'll put the deck list in the description. But I'm reasonably happy with it. It's I don't think it's an amazing strong deck quite yet, but I think it's got some very good potential, and it's fun to play. And when everything hits in the right way, it can be, I think, it can build some great momentum. So, but it looks like German American deck is what I'm up against here. So I'll get my Spitfire out, and that will give me the opportunity to hit the HQ or to do some damage. Now that Sherman has advanced, so I'm going to hit the HQ. I can't really rush this deck. I have tried in the past, and it just seems to run out of steam if I'm not constantly using the strength of the deck, which is to take out my opponent's played cards. I think the damage that my deck can do, it can be reasonably substantial, but it does rely on a very slow build and just kind of grinding the opponent down until there's no cards in hand, and then lining up an opportunity. And this is a perfect example of that. So we're going to strike on the Sherman there, and hit the tank there, and then AWOKEN GIANT to finish off the tank and to draw a card. And that's, again, very typical of this style of this deck. I've found is a lot of probably the first half or even 2/3 of the game is spent taking out the enemy cards until there's really nothing left in reserve, and then if my card draw hits as it should, I should still have cards in hand, and I can begin to just overwhelm the enemy. So I don't mind trading cards one for one in the early game. Again, this is a long range plan, and it looks like my opponent's ramping up their economy, so this should be interesting. They're already at a fairly strong economy, but the challenge sometimes with a strong economy is that it doesn't do what you doesn't do what you think it's going to do, because you end up with a bunch of cards in hand. You play them all, and then you really have no use for the those extra credits. So I have added in that Wildcat, which gives my HQ smoke screen as long as it's on the board. So that's actually pretty powerful, especially if my opponent has some units that can strike the HQ. It's something that can be, especially if I can perhaps get that Wildcat under guard or something like that. That could be a fairly substantial defense for my HQ. It's not flawless, obviously. It's still vulnerable to, artillery would certainly take it down, but it certainly makes that card a priority to wipe out, which buys my other cards time to do some damage. And you can see, actually, this is actually a perfect spot. My card draw is beginning to hit. I've got 6 cards in hand. My opponent has tons of credit slots, but no cards available. I think that perhaps the opponent's deck was not well constructed. If you've got a lot of cheap cards and you have a lot of other cards that ramp up your credit slots, I just see that as a big waste of time. It's you're just gonna be in this position right here where you've got all your cards are down on the table, and you've got nothing to play and all the credits in the world. So I'll play a card like the War Machine like this when I've got 2 credits to spare, but it's not a priority at this stage, and it's against this kind of opponent. And that's a reasonably good card, but definitely something that I can take out with potentially with some Air Force here, like this Mustang will do the trick. And now I can start hammering the base and getting into the front lines. So this is how I like this deck to work. I just find it works as a slow build, but then just very gradually the tide turns, and suddenly the opponent really doesn't have anything to do. 1 card in hand, and I've got nothing but upside. So I was able to prove myself at this level of play. And we're going to keep ramping it up here. Sergeant First Class for now, and we're going to take this all the way to Field Marshal. Hope you'll join me on the journey, and thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you have a minute, and we'll see you here next time on Legendary Tactics.